I freaking love this game. I really, truly am enjoying every moment of Ghost of Tsushima. And to be honest, if this is the last tip your hat to the PS4 Pro, I can't argue with it. I'm about 8 hours into the game, and I still feel like I've scraped the surface of just having an amazing journey. Following Jin, we are treated to what happens on the island of Tsushima when the Mongol army invades. All the samurai basically wiped out in a single attack. And Jin is mortally wounded, but is actually carried off the battlefield by a thief and nursed back to health. We shortly learn afterwards that his uncle has been captured and held for ransom, essentially, to make the whole island give up. Well, Jin is not one to give up, and he is being as resilient as possible, trying to stick to his codes, but learns that you can't always rely on code when you're a one-person army. And this is where the basis of the story happens, is Jin has to go around to parts of the island, helping out the few last people that are still able to fight, and gather up essentially a small strike force and go in to save his uncle to restore the island of Tsushima. Now, through the game, you'll be using a mix of both stealth and straight-on combat. And I kind of do a blend of this. I go into a camp, as long as I'm not seen right away, I pick off a few people through assassinations, and then, face off, or as soon as things, hit the fan, I'm pulling my samurai sword out and getting ready to fight. The first thing that you're going to notice about this game is not only how good the combat is at points, but how beautiful everything looks. It is gorgeous. There are so many times that I just catch myself looking into backgrounds at things, looking at the trees, the falling leaves, the water, listening to just sounds. Everything just is to a T amazing. And the game complements that by giving you a horseback riding that kind of just lets it go. Your horse just keeps riding, and while you might bounce off or have to dodge a big tree now and again, for the most part, you ride through everything else. This is fantastic, and I'm glad they took this into consideration, because there are several times, that I'm just riding horseback, getting lost in the environments. As you're traveling around the island of Tsushima, you're going to find a lot of different collectibles and shrines to pray at, and hot water spring baths to rest in. And all these things tend to add up to additional health, additional resolve. You name it, it's probably going to add something to somewhere. And it actually makes exploration meaningful in that sense, because I don't feel like, oh no, here's just another camp with a bunch of useless people in it, or a trader, oh boy. But I go on these paths and these adventures to experience it, because it's going to get me something in the long run. Even doing the bamboo cutting quick time events, the nice thing on those, it adds to your resolve. And you might take 3 or 4 or 5 tries to get it right, but it's worth it at the end. Even when you find these little camps of survivors, it's still worth it. There's usually a person there to talk to that they're going to, hey, there's some bandits down by this bridge here. You might want to take care of them. Kind of situation. It opens up a spot on your map. Now, combat itself is pretty great. When it works well, you're going to be effortlessly dodging and parrying and attacking to such a degree of a samurai, and it's so beautiful when it's all executed correctly. I'm not that beautiful, so therefore it looks like I'm a fish out of water half the time, but I get through it. Either way, I think the combat itself is great on the surface. I do find that there are a little too many contextual button presses to go on. Like, if you want to change stances on the fly, you have to hold this button and press this button. Then you can switch back real quick, which is a nice feature, don't get me wrong. You can be fighting a sword guy, have your sword stance on, and then all of a sudden a spear guy runs up, switch to your spear stance, be fighting him. There are certain press and hold combinations to do certain moves, and it does get a little muddy in my opinion. It takes a little bit to get used to on how these processes all work. But I get it, especially for the sake of combat. You got to have those different stances in this game. It makes it so much easier. I don't recommend staying on one stance the whole time. change it up, move to what's best you're fighting against. Oh, and if you didn't guess it, the standoff sections where you get to ride up to a group of guys and go, "Hey, fight me!" And you have this moment of just a quick time slash, and then when you could upgrade to multiple slashes to take out enemies, is breathtaking.
You're breathtaking!
Now, I have ran into a couple glitches when it comes to the normal navigation around the island. Just nothing game-breaking, but a couple weird spots where I'm trying to jump and grab something and I'm not getting to it, or a situation that I kind of do a free fall animation while kind of stuck between two rocks. That kind of stuff is there, and it's kind of common in your open world games. So it's not like this is surprising to me at all. It is something to note, though. Now, one thing I do love is that you actually, as soon as the game fires up, get a choice between English with English subtitles, Japanese with English subtitles, or the amazing Kurosawa mode. And I hope I pronounced that right. Basically, it's on the surface, it's a black and white mode, but it's so much more than that. It adapts the colors in black and white to fit the game as an old Japanese samurai movie. It just looks awesome here. And I'm to the point I think I've convinced myself to play this a second time with just Kurosawa mode because of how great of a time I'm having. And I also alter the audio a bit to make it sound like an old ribbon mic. So you're going to get this little more tinny sound to the vocals. But overall, I love that there's options for people out there to really kind of set the tone for the game. Speaking of the tone, it is a very serious toned game. There's not a lot of wisecracks or joking going on. It's a Mongol invasion, and they wiped out every samurai on the island, basically. So it is a very much serious tone from start until... Again, I'm about 8-ish hours into it, and it's been serious this whole time. Maybe a joke cracked here or there when he's talking to some old friends, but for the most part, don't go into this game expecting too many laughs. I love Jin as a character. I think his demeanor towards everybody is fantastic. When he talks to just regular people and they give him information, he appreciates that, and he has the tonality that he does. Like, hey, you should take some time off for yourself and go relax in one of the hot spring baths. He's like, you know what? You are 100% right. Warriors do this all the time. We need that rest. Thank you for recommending that to me. Or, hey, I heard writing haikus are good for, clearing the mind. And he's like, yes. A lot of times as samurai take time to write haikus to clear our mind and prepare ourselves for battle. And those kind of little insights to the game is just the pinprick of how much detail they put into it. And that's just, I love it. Things from when Jin's done with a fight and he cleans off his blade. Sometimes he flicks it off and you see the blood splatter on the ground. Other times he uses his sleeve, his arm, and cleans it off. To every time he takes his time and puts it back into his case. Again, the horseback riding. It lets you take in the surroundings and not necessarily worry 100% about what's in front of you. You're still going to have, it's not like an autopilot, you're going to have to control the horse, but it still allows you to enjoy the ride. The flowers all flow, using wind to direct you is awesome. Following the fox or the bird to these locations of shrines to increase your health or increase your resolve, or just little secret paths, is great. And I'm just having a blast with it. To kind of wrap the game up, I think while there are a couple little issues with the open worldness of it, getting stuck in a few spots, not permanently, but just that free fall animation in weird spots, and maybe a little muddy in the combat section, I think overall the game has a gorgeous soundtrack, beautiful voice acting, an amazing storyline, and support characters that I didn't even mention because they're just great as well. Everything in the game is great. And I definitely recommend anybody, even if you're not huge into samurai, maybe just give it a shot. You never know, because it is fun. And again, if this is the last hurrah of the PS4 Pro, they went out on top. So that wraps up my first impressions for Ghost of Tsushima. And if you'd like to see some content for it, click the link to your left. That'll take you to a running playlist, all done in no commentary in 4K, for those of you who want to enjoy that beautifulness of it. And if you like what you see and you want to see some more, click the link to your right. That'll take you to the channel itself, where we have tons of videos going on over there. And until next time, you guys, stay frosty.